Hello, and welcome. My name is William Carver. I am the Core Services and Alliances Director here at SCC, and I'm very excited today to be introducing SCC's inaugural podcast, SCC Simplify, The Journey to XLAs. And I'm joined by a couple of colleagues here today. So, Amin, could I perhaps ask you to introduce yourself?
Hi, Bill. My name is Amin Tavakoli. I'm the EMEA Managing Director of Digital Workplace at SCC.
Thank you. And Mark?
It's lovely to be here, William. It's a privilege to talk to you today. My name is Mark Franzen. I'm part of the digital workplace team, in particular experience services. So think about personas and XLAs, changing doctrine productivity, and DEX. That's all my bag, and excited to be here.
Well, that's a really good lead in to the first question, because I suspect a lot of people will be asking themselves, what on earth is an XLA? Perhaps, Amin, would you mind just explaining?
XLA is a way of measuring employee experiences, right? It's bringing different data points, telemetry, and sentiment of the employees together, makes up a score that is a measurable way of thinking about how we want to drive employee experiences.
It's a commitment.
Yep.
And it's absolutely something that organizations are moving away from historically SLAs, looking at trends and metrics to do with technology, but making sure that it's human experience on that technology and bringing XLAs that overarch that. It's not about getting rid of SLAs, but it's ensuring that metrics that matter.
And it's trying to pull out that experience component, which you might lose otherwise if you're just measuring things traditionally through a service level agreement.
That's absolutely what it is.
So, I mean, XLAs have been around for a little bit and they've evolved quite a lot. We'll talk a bit about that in a second. Can you just perhaps articulate a bit what problems XLAs are actually trying to solve? What are you trying to measure and why are you trying to measure it? And maybe, Emily, you could answer that one.
Yeah, so I think the way to think about XLAs is it's a different way of approaching the IT and the technologies that you provide in digital workplace to the employees, right? Thinking not about applications, not about network, not about the device, but thinking about what all of that comes together to deliver to employees, and being able to measure that level of experience and continuously improve that.
Mm-hmm. So is it fair to say that part of that is an empirical measurement of what a feeling of a sentiment, if you like?
It is. Sentiment is at the core of it, right? I think when you're thinking about XLA, if the sentiment is not positive, but everything else looks green, you still have a problem, right? And it needs to be evaluated, it needs to be understood, and you need to take actions continuously to try to, improve the sentiment and improve the technology experience.
So in thinking about that, then there's a component within this, I guess, Mark, from your point of view, thinking about it, there's a technical component to that, which is an important part of it, but also there's the human factor that needs to be considered as you're looking at XLAs, right?
Yeah, and that's historically been the issue, William, if I'm honest, in that organizations have focused purely on the technical aspect from a SLA point of view, and they've not considered the experience and what users are going through. And that's essentially what XLAs do. It's not just focusing on the T data, if you like, that technical. It's looking at the X data sentiment. And that can be captured through sentiment tools, captured through surveys, questionnaires, and then you include that with R data or O data, role data, X data, which is the sentiment, and then T data. You can't forget about the T data. So it's important that you get all that sentiment, but then it underarches and reinforces it. Its perception is a sentiment, and then the science, if you like, is the technology. And there are DEX tools out there that support us in gathering that data on what is happening with users.
So, I mean, and that's a really good point. So in terms of gathering data, we've had tools in the IT world for years and years and years, and there are many, many of them out there. And we've talked about user experience for a long time in the IT world. Why do you think now XLAs are beginning to really take off? What's driving people to go and have a look at this more seriously?
So we've had a lot of tools that can gather data, right? I think one of the problems that we've had in the past was that when you're gathering data from different technology stack and you're not joining them up, right, you get a disjointed view of your technology stack that ultimately is there to support an employee experience, right? And there are different teams looking at telemetry that's coming from network monitoring tools, telemetry that's coming from the devices and applications, right? And often these were joined up, right? So to deliver the experience, you need to kind of look at the lens that captures all of it. So one of the failures in the past of delivering that experience was because of this disjointed telemetry. But I think with XLAs, and it comes with the different ways of thinking about it, and sentiment being at the heart of it, right? So you need to approach it as, what is this telemetry is telling me, taking that, making it actionable, and take actions continuously on it. So I think we've experienced some disjoint in the past of, data is always good, but it's only as good as, what is it telling you, and if you're taking actions on it.
I do think also, William, it's to do with the shift in mindset from organizations now, where previously it perhaps been an IT-led initiative. That's where the money was. That's where the funding was. But actually, I was with a colleague. We were at a recent round table. And when I went in to the room, my expectation was it was about decks. It was about XLAs and user experience. My assumptions was it would be IT people in the room. Actually, we were the only IT people there. The rest of the room were all HR. And it was only then I quickly understood within that session that actually that is a mind shift. It isn't just solely IT now. It's bringing to the party, if you like, to the table, HR in particular. Yeah, things like procurement, as well as IT, because that's normally where the funding is. But then other areas of the business that have an invested interest in user experience. And that's where I see a shift, where perhaps we were 5-6 years ago, where it very much was an IT-led initiative, moving to an absolutely HR, IT procurement, the whole business SLT within that focus on user centricity.
So does the decision making around this, does this sit at kind of a board level, or is it at an IT delivery level, or is it all of them, or somewhere else?
You need to get buy-in across the board, first of all. I think where the funding is obviously the key, where there's those initiatives and there's the focus. The culture of the organization is very important. So if that culture is very much user-centric, the buy-in is almost there straight away. But it's a collaboration piece. If you only have one part of the jigsaw, if you like, or the cog of the wheel, it's not going to work. You need the buy-in across the board. And that's why change and adoption is very key with anything within user experience. And within XLAs, is understanding those important moments that matter, those metrics that matter to users, and then bringing them on that journey. And that's why change and adoption is also important.
So it's as much as a technology challenge, it's also a cultural challenge within the business itself.
Absolutely. It's a transformation, and you need executive sponsorships, you need networks of champions, and you need everybody to be aiming towards that same goal. That is, we are trying to implement and improve the employee experiences over time, right? And that requires basically IT, HR, different departments, leadership coming together, standing behind that vision. But it's a transformation, and as with any transformation, you need that network of people working.
I mean, yeah, and it sounds like it could be quite complicated to go and try and do, because getting that coordination across an organization is always tricky. Where would you suggest organizations start to look at? They're going to begin this journey. What's the sort of first step that they should start to try and take?
I think just simplify that by thinking about what is the experience ambitions, right? When we're talking about experience, first of all, you need to understand what the current experience is. You need to benchmark it, and then thinking about improving that experience. What's the ambition around it? What parts of the experience you need to improve? And what are the outcomes that those experience improvements going to deliver to your organization, right? So tie that experience to a business metric, business KPI, something that matters. It could be HR related. It could be to do with talent retention, acquisition, could be anything. But having that established link between this experience improvement means this to our organization that everybody can get behind. I think that's kind of simplifying that and also connecting it. So it's not a technology exercise. It's a transformation that's going to deliver to our organizational goals, right?
It's about baby steps as well. And I think a lot of organizations will try and do a big bang approach, and it sometimes isn't successful. It's about, like Amin said, setting those ambitions, understanding where you are now, where you want to get to, and then that journey for delivering that user experience. And actually, it's implementing 1 or 2 XLAs to start with, understanding how they're going, and they're adaptive. You can change them. And that's perhaps the difference between SLAs. William, you look at it, and SLAs go in 30 years ago and stay in the contract forever. No one ever looks at them. IT just say 99% they fit availability. Where actually XLAs are dynamic. They're adaptive. So if they're not working out, they could be taken away and new ones introduced. You should only report on something that you're going to do something with. Then that's really important. And the other bit I think to mention on Amin's part was the change champions or experience champions. They're the evangelists within the organization. And that's part of that journey, is to bring everyone on. If you're doing it in isolation, in silos, you're not going to be successful. It is getting buy-in across the entire organization, that culture, and those experience champions are key for that.
And I guess, I mean, you mentioned there are a couple of things which always fascinate me is what do you go and measure and why do you go and measure it? And I know one of your favorite analogies, Mark, is talking about the watermelon effect, where you're measuring things the wrong way. Could you just maybe articulate that a little bit? Because I think it's useful for people to understand.
Yeah, sure. I think in the industry, watermelon's used a lot, where it's, if you imagine a watermelon, green on the outside and red underneath. And if you go from the SLA metric point of view, IT might be reporting that a service is up for, let's say, 30 days or 29 days, let's say. And IT is saying everything's green. And that service is running at where it should be. But on that 30th day for an hour, the service goes down, that service. But that particular point is critical and employees are impacted. So the employee experience is red, it's not green. Where IT's overview would be that it's green, but actually it's not. If we use an example, Will, of perhaps a boardroom, and there's a conference call and we're going through with the board, if you like, through that conference call, the stats and what's going performance for that year, if you like. IT might be saying technically everything's fine, but the user experience in that particular boardroom, if the connectivity is not, I was on a call yesterday, ironically, we were talking about this particular subject, and the connectivity from the other person's end was really poor. You couldn't hear them. The sound was going in and out. They were disconnecting. They couldn't present. So the experience for that user and the people on that call was extremely poor. Well, actually, from an IT point of view, it might look green. And that's the difference from an IT-led metric to say the service is up, 99%, let's say, availability. But the experience for those particular users is poor. And that's what the watermelon attracts. You want green and not green and red.
Yeah, makes sense.
And sometimes it's not just about the technology, right? Maybe the SLAs are good, XLA is good when you're monitoring it, but you actually see that the experience in reality is not right. And it could be just that because everything is working, but the person who's using the technology don't know how to use it, right? So it could be an adoption issue. That's why a lot of things need to come together with a focus on, is it delivering what the organization needs or not?
And I suppose that's a really neat lead into, because I think some people will be listening to this and go, it's just another bloody AI type trend where everybody talks about it, but it's not very empirical. I can't prove it. Have we got examples where we can talk about where it's actually worked and what impact it's had?
We've got a live customer at the moment, a big charity in the UK, and we're working with them on implementing XLAs. If you like, the metrics that are currently there are not about sentiment. They're very much technology based. So we start with discovery with that customer. We understand where they want to get to, the as is state, where they want to get to. And we then start understanding from users, William, about the sentiment, what's really important to them, their pain points, their issues, their challenges. And we gather all of that information to create those XLAs. And to give you that live example, that's exactly what we're doing right now, understanding what's important to those users with this particular customer. We're creating those XLAs, understanding those pain points that those users are currently going through across the board, and then creating metrics that matter, moments that matter for those users to focus on that experience. It's not about getting rid of the SLAs, but it's overarching XLAs across them. And we could between with that particular customer, that's exactly what we're doing now. And the differentiator with what we do at SCC is we don't just stop by creating those XLAs like we did for this customer. It's by passing the baton on to our experience management office and our center of excellence. And they do a continuous improvement, William, on that approach, working on those XLAs, looking at the metrics of this particular customer, seeing where those issues are, and proactively going out and resolving them so that user experience is absolutely front and center for the work they're doing. And that is really important. This isn't just a one-stop shop, if you like, that you do something and walk away. It's a continuous improvement, understanding what's working, what's not working. And that live example is exactly what we're doing at SCC.
The XLAs are, by the way, not new. A lot of maybe a new thing to many customers, right? But it's been around for years, different versions of it. I think only in the past 3-4 years, it's kind of taken its journey. It's quite mature now, and I think the technologies that supports getting the technology data also is quite mature. And we are at the point that actually XLAs are accelerating, and a lot of organizations are getting on that journey, right? So right time, I think the right level of maturity in the XLA, thinking about it. Also, we have the likes of XLA Institute, which we are a founding member of, right? It's becoming a standard, ISO standard in the next year or so. So it's going to be the default for many customers, as it is with SLAs. XLAs just going to become the norm. But yeah, it's but to Mark's point, it's a journey, right? So organizations who want to start a small baby steps, and then thinking about a 2, 3, 4 year maturity journey, that they keep gonna evolve that the way that you're thinking about it. And ultimately, it's about focusing on metrics that matter. So if one XLA doesn't work, change it. Be flexible around it. It needs some agility.
So a continual process of improvement as you go through. And I guess if you're sitting at a board right now and you're thinking about how to go and try and do this, I know we talk a little bit about trying to do sort of a 90-day toe in the water type approach. What would that look like as a first engagement to start the ball rolling?
I think, as mentioned before, probably just focusing on the benchmarking of experience, thinking about the experience ambitions, right? Setting that up, making sure that we are designing the experiences that delivers business outcomes. And then starting with very simple, a couple of XLAs, as Mark mentioned, get it going, see that how it's performing. Based on that, see that it's actually, if the activities that you're putting in making an impact on the XLA improvement. And then do you see the business outcomes, right? Start with baby steps, but it starts with perhaps ambitions, also looking at the persona profiles, and try to tailor the experiences to those personas, I would say is probably important.
Absolutely. And it's not a silver bullet, William. It's not a one shot and that'll fix everything. I would almost say you don't put your toe in the water. It's an absolute point that you get everyone on the same page. It's not just IT like we spoke about before.
Yeah.
It's HR, it's procurement. And it's whatever business units have an invested interest in user experience. And then you look at where you are now in that measurement. It's not just a one piece and it fixes everything. It's a journey. We've mentioned that several times in this. And I think that organizations, sometimes in the past, and that's where it's fallen down, where we'll do something once and hope it works. It's absolutely that continuous improvement. It's having something to manage that continuous improvement as well. So it's all very well creating those XLAs. You need a team and resource to manage that ongoing. And again, that's where this perhaps has fallen down before with other organizations and approaches where they just implement XLAs and hope for the best. Is having a team dedicated to manage that as an ongoing basis.
So it's more than the tool, it's more than the process, it's more than one person, it's an organizational change that you're trying to achieve here. So I guess, thinking about the people that might be listening to this, some of them will be quite familiar with XLA, some of them won't be. If you had a key message to kind of leave them with to start the ball rolling and thinking about, what would that be? What would you say to somebody that's just beginning?
I would say, just if you haven't started, just get it started, right? It's going to become something that every organization will be doing, right? It's just a matter of starting small, start thinking about it, because as we mentioned, it's not a technology implementation. It's not just a process. It's a mindset shift, right? Start getting into that mindset and see where it takes you.
And the start of the journey shouldn't be daunting.
Sure.
It's a marathon, not a sprint, if you like, right? So it's don't expect everything to be overnight. It's those baby steps. It's bringing everyone on that journey. It's understanding the culture. It's looking at what is important. Where do you want to get to? And then mapping out that journey on how you're going to deliver it. And those XLAs that can support you. And then start with those 1 or 2 XLAs. See if they're working. Look at those metrics. What's important to users? And then add to them and progress to them as you go on. I reiterate, it's not that silver bullet. It's not a one shot and it's going to cure everything. But if you bring together everyone with a focus on user centricity, focusing on users, what is important to them, put them at the front and center, then you're going to achieve what you're after.
Well, folks, I think it's been a really interesting conversation, and hopefully it's left the audience with some thoughts and some ideas that they might go away with. If people want to get in touch, come on to scc.com. You'll find the user experience page there, and you can get in touch with us and chat to Amin and Mark directly. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.